Welcome to the Christian Life Coach Collective. I'm your host, Laura Malone, and you are in the right place if you want to make an impact in your life and the lives of the people around you. Maybe you even want to turn your gift of helping others into an income so you can support your family and your dreams and make a way for your calling. I'm here to guide you because you deserve to have encouragement and resources and somebody invested in you as you go invest yourself into everyone else. Let's dive into today's episode. So we've been talking about having hope in the storm, right? And in the last episode, we covered compassion fatigue and basically just talked about what it was and what are the signs and the symptoms of it. But today I want to talk about healing from compassion fatigue, how to process through it, heal from it, and if you are around people who might have compassion fatigue, some things that you could ask them and ways that you can support them in their own process and healing journey. So basically, compassion fatigue is, again, it's caring too much for too long. Moms get it, caregivers deal with it. You know, there's so much people in the, so many people in the helping hearted industry, the service industry. But then when you have a role in life, even if it's not something you're getting paid for, if you tend to overcare, I think you can have compassion fatigue, even if it's not something that's a responsibility somebody gave you. I think for the people that are just high responsibility and high caring people, I've seen people end up in compassion fatigue when they don't have a caregiving role, but they take it on personally and then operate from that because it's probably a gifting and a strength in their life. But they operate in it for so long, doing too much in their own mind to be caring about everybody and everything for such a long time. And they end up with compassion fatigue, but probably wonder, could it actually be compassion fatigue because I don't have a job doing that, right? So then they don't realize that that's actually what they're struggling with. And that means they're not going to process through it and they're not going to heal from it because they think it's all in their mind. They don't understand what's happening, right? So I have met many people like that who didn't think that there was a good or enough reason for them to be able to say, I have compassion fatigue. To me, I just call it like your carer is broke. You broke my carer. And I think when you have a heart to care for people, that strength, when it's overused, wrongly used, or misused, it becomes a liability. It's no longer an actual strength. And I think one of the things that's really important to do is mind what is yours and recognize what is not. Is this yours to do? Or should you be caring about this? Or is this something for somebody else to care about? Do you need to let go of it? I also believe that sometimes that deep level of care can be rooted in a level of control, which is rooted in fear, right? So think about that for yourself. Are you in a role where you're actually responsible to be caring for people for so long and so much? Or are you taking on things that are not yours to do and it's wearing you down, and perhaps you've done it for decades, your entire life? It would make sense that you have compassion fatigue if you care so much for so long, whether you were asked to or not, whether you get paid to do it or not, or whether anybody else recognizes it or not. And that is actually going to be a huge part of your processing and healing from compassion fatigue, because you need to recognize, where are you called to care and where do you need to let it go and let somebody else step into that? Okay. Healing from compassion fatigue requires a lot of intentional care for yourself. Most of the people I've dealt with that are in that place of compassion fatigue have been caring for everybody else and other things for so long without taking care of themselves. So we actually have to turn things around, begin to pay attention to ourselves, get awareness of where we're at, what we're lacking, where's the voids, where is the weariness, where is the woundedness. We have to start taking care of those things. It's going to take time. So first you have to acknowledge the fact, the issue. Self-awareness is really the first step to healing. You have to recognize and admit the toll that your caregiving is taking on you. Oftentimes, caregivers feel guilty when they think that they need to take care of themselves, and so that they don't do it. And what happens is you can't keep caring, because you can't care for everybody else well at the minimum if you're not caring for yourself, right? If you're exhausted, you're tired, you're not feeding, you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you don't ever take time to rest, you don't ever take time to have fun, right? If you're not doing those things, and when you do those things, you absorb what you're doing. You can't just say, yes, well, of course, I went to a birthday party. Well, it doesn't sound like you had fun. I did sleep 8 hours. You don't sound like rested. If you do the things and call that self-care, but you don't feel rested, there's no fruit from it, then likely you were just going along with it, or maybe you were even buffering. Buffering does not produce self-care results. Self-care produces rest and restoration, okay? Also, you have to just give permission to care for yourself. I'm giving you permission right now. If I were to be your mother, I would tell you, you don't have permission, you have a requirement, but I'm not your mom. It really is something that you have to do. You have to understand self-care is not selfish. It's strategic. It is required to be able to continue serving other people, especially if you're in the helping hearted industry, or you're a parent, or you're a caregiver to your parents, right? It's required that you have some level of self-care that is resting and restoring for you. And you have to take time for recovery. You need boundaries. You have to have clear emotional and physical boundaries between caring for everybody else and caring for yourself and your personal life. Try to avoid bringing work home or checking on those people you care when you're not on duty, right? And if you work from home, I know that's really hard. You've got to create boundaries and say, like, past this time of day, I don't do this kind of work. I don't make these kind of phone calls. I don't take these kind of phone calls, etc. You have to rest physically, emotionally, and mentally, and take time off from all of the things that you care about. Stop caring for a little while, right? We talked about this in an episode on taking a Sabbath. And I talked about how physical rest and emotional rest and mental rest, they're all different. You need a Sabbath from the things that you do the rest of the week. So if you are thinking about things for your work, you're on the computer like I am all of the time, then the Sabbath is going to require that you do things that are more physical or even maybe emotional that give your brain a break. If your care is very emotional, let's say you're a nurse, well, then you need a day where you can stop and read a book, do some thought work, do physical activity. And well, you probably need a break physically too if you're a nurse. But if you do physical work, then take a day on the couch, right? You have to recognize that a Sabbath isn't just don't do anything, sit on the couch all day, don't think, don't feel. It's what is it you actually need to strategically rest from? So whatever you're doing all week that is really weary, go do the opposite of that. And for me, because I'm so mental, I'm mental. I'm so working in my mind all of the time. I need to go for a walk. I'm going for a walk later today because I've got to get out of my head and more into my body. And that is something that is good Sabbath lunch for me. It's rest, it's self-care. You also have to re-engage with just some personal joy. You got to go find things that you like to do. Reconnect with who you are outside of being a caregiver. There's always also just something to be said for professional help and support, therapy, support groups. There's a lot of different compassion fatigue groups out there who also understand the shared experiences, and it will help you feel less lonely and isolated, like you're the only person who feels this way. And you also need to just get that lay out the ways that works for you to get that regular self-care. So again, exercise, sleep, nutrition, relaxation techniques that work for you, right? And then that emotional care was going to look like journaling, reflection, meditation, gratitude work, and then mindfulness. That can help reduce all of your stress, the meditation, and just spend time, get in the word, close your eyes, kind of center on Jesus, center where you are, pay attention to who you are, what's going on, what you really feel, what you really need, right? Also, there's something called compassion satisfaction. And this is going back to why you care in the first place. Like, why did you take that job? Why did you accept this role in the first place? And if you wanted to do this, then there is some measure of satisfaction and pleasure derived from doing it. And when you tap back into that satisfaction and pleasure of why you're caring, why you're a mom, why you're a nurse, why you are a teacher, why you are a first responder, why you are showing up and helping people, why you chose to take care of your parent, there is a satisfaction and pleasure, even if it's simply, I believe this is the right thing to do. You have to go back and tap into your solid reason why you're doing this thing. And that can just help create a little buffer there between compassion fatigue and compassion satisfaction. So go take some time and reflect on when you really felt like your care and your caregiving makes a difference for other people, okay? Now, if you think that somebody you know might be struggling with compassion fatigue, here's some questions. You want to be non-judgmental, non-attached. You want to be empathetic and create just space and time for them to explore what they are thinking and feeling. So you can ask questions like, how have you been feeling about the work that you've been doing lately, or the caregiving that you've been doing lately? Have you noticed feeling more drained than usual, even if you're not at work or you're not actively caring for this person or this role, this job, these responsibilities? Are you finding it hard to stay emotionally connected with the people that you're helping? What's your sleep and your energy like? Like, are you feeling rested or are you constantly tired? Do you find yourself more irritable, frustrated, overwhelmed? Are there times when you feel a little bit numb or kind of detached from the work or the people you care for? Have you been able to take time for yourself recently? And how are you caring for your own needs? And do you feel like you have the support you need from your friends and your family and your coworkers? Have you noticed changes in your physical health, like stomach problems, headaches, back, your shoulders? How are they? I get stress shoulders, so I know what that is. And I know what it's pointing to. It's a symptom of. Is there anything you feel would help relieve some of the stress or emotional burden you feel right now? So these are just questions that you can ask. You can check this out on the blog. Look for this in the blog, and all of the things that I'm sharing in these episodes in this Finding Hope in the Storm series is all in the blog. So if you want to kind of get an overview of everything I'm telling you and see it laid out, you can look there at the links in the show notes, but sterlingandstonementoring.com, and then just click on the blog. And then when you're with somebody who has compassion fatigue, be safe for them. Let them share what they're saying. Do not coach them. Don't judge them. Don't fix them. And don't interrupt them. Let them vent and share everything that's in them. We talk a lot on this podcast about being a place and how coaching and self-coaching is actually a place where you understand that what you are experiencing, the facts of the world, you experience them and you have this paradigm about them, and you're looking at the way that you interpret the facts. And then that is the thoughts and the imaginations that you're perceiving, that are coming up for you when you're in the situation. And then those things that you think and imagine, they lead to what you feel. So now you've got these emotions building up, and that's going to lead to the actions that you take. When you are the person who is the support, you're the friend, the family member, the spouse, the coworker, and you're in front of somebody who's struggling with compassion fatigue, you need to allow them, act like their coach, and allow them to think what they think without your judgment. Feel how they feel fully so it can process through and out, and express it all without you imposing who you are in the middle of who they are. They need to be able to process it, to heal. Two things that are very practical. Suggest ways that they could, get rest or take a break from their caregiving. And maybe somebody could take over something for them or help them one day, even for parents, moms need, I know dads need it too, but I do focus obviously on the motherhood side of compassion fatigue because I know it really well. And just having somebody who says, let me stay at home while your kids nap. You go take a walk or go to the store by yourself. Things like that, really, really helpful. And knowing that things like that could potentially happen, that's really helpful too, because then it gives hope that compassion fatigue can heal and we're not stuck in this cycle when we are very caring people. But then just check in with them and regularly ask, how are you doing emotionally, physically, mentally? Not just about the task, the role, the responsibility, the people they're taking care of, but actually give them space to ask themselves the question that you bring up. How are your emotions? Are you feeling like a heavy weight on your heart right now? How are you doing mentally? Do you feel like there's a level of mental health that you're operating from? Or are you really struggling with some overwhelm or some anxiety or depression? How's your body? Check in with your body. And if you offer that to them, it gives them reminders and holds the space for them to think about it for themselves. Obviously, always encourage professional help if somebody needs professional therapy and somebody to talk through, especially if as a caregiver that's been associated with some trauma. But there's such an emotional toll on caregiving. And that is exactly what therapists and counselors are licensed and trained for, right? And then maybe help them set some boundaries. So if they tend to overextend themselves, well, ask them some questions that help them set boundaries. Encourage them to say no when it's necessary. So I think that it's possible. I know that it's possible to process and heal from compassion fatigue. I've done it myself several times. And I now can spot what's happening and when I'm leaning into it, when I'm falling into compassion fatigue. And I say, like, my carer is broken. I can feel that it is bending. I can feel when it's breaking. And I know how hard it is, even if you have all this language and this awareness and these tools and this understanding. I know how hard it is in the midst of crisis, in the midst of high care need. I completely recognize sometimes you're so in the focus now, feel later, that compassion fatigue is just something that you accept. You recognize that you're sacrificing your peace, your rest, your boundaries, and you know that compassion fatigue may occur, and yet you still choose to do the thing that's in front of you that is high responsibility in caring for the situation or the people. All I can say is I understand that sometimes compassion fatigue is going to be the outcome you get from your actions that you intentionally, consciously choose to put yourself. You put yourself into a situation. You know there will be suffering. You know there will be sacrifice. You know it's going to be hard. You know you will have to do the work to recover later. Well, this is how we recover later, when we are the kind of people who say, I'm not going to give up. I won't quit on my kids. I won't quit on my job. I won't quit on my patients. I won't quit on my responsibility. I won't quit on the calling on my life to be a caregiver, to be someone who cares at a high level for a long period of time. But I want you to know that there's a process and there's time that's needed, and you can find ways to mitigate and prepare for compassion fatigue and then to recover from it. So that wraps up our time on compassion fatigue. We're going to dive into some other things in the next episodes that still refer to finding hope in the storm. I hope this is being a blessing to you wherever you are, whatever kind of storm you find yourself in. I'm in it with you, friends. So love to you. Talk to you in the next episode. If you'd like to work with me and get coaching, become a coach, or start a coaching business, check out all the courses and coaching I offer at sterlingandstonementoring.com. Or you can scroll through the show notes to find all the links that you need. I pray that your day will be full of joy, hope, transformation, and the presence of God.